breaking news. The home of John Bolton was raided by the FBI. I believe his office as well. They've said a secondary location. I believe that's the assumption. They believe that they have reason to do so. When President Trump was asked, he said he was not briefed beforehand, didn't know about it. You know what? Maybe that's the right thing, because we know that's not certainly how it was running during the Biden administration.
That's right. So as you mentioned, there was an early morning raid about 7 a.m. it appears, local time, so East Coast time, at both John Bolton's house as well as his office. As far as while we are live right now, FBI is still at locations doing a search. This is a search warrant that had to be signed off by a judge. As you mentioned, President Trump said he was not briefed about this prior. And I think, Jordan, that is one thing that is unique, I think, to some degree. Getting back to the way that the DOJ should operate in a case like this is they went before a judge. They got a search warrant, which is the normal process. The president wasn't read into this as though he directed or ordered this raid. That the FBI believe they had probable cause to look into what they are calling a national security investigation.
Yes, I think what this all kind of comes together as, this is the investigation into leaks that happened under the first Trump administration, leaks that led to impeachment, leaks that led to special counsel. And we know that one of those individuals who played a role in the first impeachment, as I did, was John Bolton. And it's because he used the impeachment to tease his new book. His book was about his access to the White House. I think it was called like In the Room Where It Happened. The Room Where It Happened, yeah. And remember, there was this whole debate during that impeachment trial that I was part of about whether or not he would testify. And he was promoting his book. It said, to find out all the info, you got to buy the book. He said he would not voluntarily testify, and he would have to be subpoenaed. And ultimately, he was not subpoenaed to testify in that. And again, this was a guy looking at that point to sell books. So anything he could do to tie it to what was going on.
Felt like a marketing
I would
play.
imagine that would be the starting point, right? Is he took information. Was it actually cleared? When you're a national security official and you write a book, it has to go through government clearance of a number of different government agencies to make sure that you are not releasing both classified information and also information that could be damaging or harmful to operations that are currently that the U.S. is currently engaged in. So it's not like a normal person who writes a book, My Time in Politics. This is, when you're a national security official, it's a very different standard, and he rushed it through.
Yeah, but he did rush it through. I think there is Kash Patel put out no one is above the law. FBI agents are on a mission. Van Bondi said America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued always. All these kind of posts are going up. Now, look, I think what they need to prove, what they need to show, and this is just my point of view, it doesn't have to be the point of view of everyone else's, is that this isn't just retaliatory, that this isn't just sort of revenge hunting, that they actually have probable cause to be going to do this. Because if not, you're going to have a situation where this is going to be a new ping pong, and I don't care for that. Yeah. I don't care for the idea of just raiding to raid.
No, what I think would be interesting is if this is the beginning, and what we have is both Democrats and Republicans being raided, because this is an administration that says we care about the leakers, not what party they're affiliated with. Yeah. They were all doing it to hurt the president. So they all had that kind of as their impetus, but it doesn't matter if they had an R next to their name or a D next to their name or whose administration they served in, that no one is above the law. And I think it's very important, Logan, as you said, for this not to look like retaliation, but to look like the beginning of no one is above the law. And that, I think, would be a lot easier to accept as why these national security raids may be necessary.
Yeah, when you're doing these kind of raids, this situation happens. Look, I'm not a big raid guy to begin with. I think there needs to be a pretty high bar before you start going into people's property. I'm not a fan. As long as that high bar was met, though, I understand the situation. But I want to make sure that like President Trump said, he had no idea about it. I hope that's true, because I think that is the role of the FBI. That shouldn't be the role of the presidency.
Well, and Logan, once again, as you mentioned, that is what we did see many times during the Biden administration against former officials within the Trump world, whether his campaign and whatnot. And that's what the Comey and then Chris Wray FBI like to do. And we weren't a fan of it then. Obviously, there are times when the FBI needs to do this. What we are hearing is that they went to a judge and got a probable cause warrant. Now, I mean, that was able to be done with those other raids as well. But what I think you are also going to start to see...
Raiding someone who is, trafficking people or drugs, okay, get it. But if it's, he may have some documents floating around. We've kind of seen that document battle over the course of the last decade now, and maybe I'm tired of it. But hopefully, like you said, that judge was legitimate, took the cause, and approved it.
What you are also going to see, and I've already seen it this morning, I saw it on CNN this morning, saw it on other networks as well, is the Democrats, especially in Congress, come out and start to blast this. This is political retribution against people. When at the core of it, though, if you were to boil it down, and it is a classified documents, retaining government documents type of situation, and you realize how the FBI was weaponized against the individual who could declassify, raiding Mar-a-Lago, indicting him for that, and then the left screaming no one is above the law. Well, they got it wrong on the law there, but they were right in principle that no one is above the law, Jordan. We've seen throughout this ever since the Russiagate scandal, individuals within government that had been around way too long and thought of themselves as more worthy of government secrets or the smartest guy in the room, and therefore they were somehow outranked even the president of the United States. And I think that was what a lot of the problems with many people were. They had that kind of swampy old vibe, even if they weren't the traditional swamp creature, but they had worked in Washington so long that they thought that they were above the way the Constitution operates and that they were the most important person. Therefore, they could do whatever they wanted.
Right, and write whatever they wanted. So, I think a lot of this, again, stemming from the impeachment trial. You had John Bolton come out, release a teaser to his new book, that, again, was the room where it happened, that supposedly had a lot of information the impeachment was about, but then he upset Democrats by refusing to voluntarily testify, and he would have to be subpoenaed to testify. Republicans and ultimately the Senate did not make that move because it looked like a ploy to sell books, honestly. And
that's where he started losing, I think, a lot of people in terms of public favor, not just within conservatives, within Democrats, because he was at some point a very respected guy.
I would say, remember, this goes back to, first of all, John Bolton was our representative, ambassador to the United Nations under President Bush. Right. He has always been a hawk and a neocon. He was then brought in to the Trump administration with a lot of other hawks and neocons. You had your Rex Tillersons, Mattis, others who really were kind of holdovers from the kind of George W. Bush, even H.W. Bush style of geopolitics when it comes to utilizing a military force. And people from the very beginning, we were on the outside then, not the inside, said, this is going to cause some conflicts. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take long for them to cause conflicts. But they didn't just cause conflicts in the fact of, we don't agree, so maybe you need to resign, or I like your opinion because I don't always agree with it, but I want your opinion in the room, so keep it in there. Instead, it became a fight, and it was won by, remember, this was one of a number of those first round of officials who did not fit into the Trump world or the Trump geopolitical vision.
Another thing to this, as people are going to say this is political retribution, all of those things, if it were that, if this were President Trump going after his enemies list, John Bolton, I don't think, would be the very first person that they would go after in a political retribution style. There is reporting from Catherine Herridge that this is actually a reopening of an investigation that was shut down by the Biden administration. So that there were individuals and investigators that believed that there was a classified information or national security issue with John Bolton years ago, and then that when the Biden administration decided to shut it down. So whether there's new evidence or there was a re-examination of this case and thought that maybe Biden shut it down for political reasons, that all could be coming out as well, that this isn't necessarily something new. This is something that was already being investigated by federal authorities at some point within the last 4 years, and then the Biden administration decided to shut it down.
They had to go to a judge.
Yeah, someone had to approve it.
Yes, it had to get approved. So it's not like they can just unilaterally on their own as the Department of Justice or FBI go raid someone's home. You have to then go to another branch of government to get the sign-off on that. And the reason has to be is that that anything else like, hey, where you're coming, we need you to prepare these documents for us, would provide someone possibly the opportunity to try and destroy documents that they have in their possession that they should not have in their possession. So it's not a real high bar if you when you have someone who is as public as John Bolton, wrote a book about a lot of these things, kind of rushed it through the clearance process. I think there were some issues there as well. I have to go back to that, the times of the first impeachment. But what I think is important is this is not like the only person. Like, there's got to be, because it was not just John Bolton. He did play a significant role in that first impeachment, played a major role. He was kind of, faked out and trying to be like the spoiler. Like, I've got something no one else knows because I was in the room. And we found out that was all to sell books. There was nothing in there. But also when that book came out, wasn't a lot in there that was new, that I recall.
I do not hope that it is somehow not an on the up and up investigation, because we don't want, as we've mentioned with impeachment, we don't want that to be what our system becomes. No. And therefore, I do believe that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are doing things the correct way, at least as we've seen thus far. And so the hope and the kind of benefit of the doubt is that there is a compelling reason that they needed to do it this way. I don't believe that they would have done it just for show, especially if it's just a classified documents issue, because then that would once again be something that public relations wise, it backfires on them majorly.
Yeah, absolutely.